Welcome to Undressing Intimacy, where we cut through the bullshit
Greggy,
so we can get naked.
you can't say that.
Why not? How would you say it then?
Well, maybe more like, welcome to Undressing Intimacy, where we undress emotionally so we can undress physically.
That's exactly what I said. Not sure what the problem is. Live from Jacksonville, Florida. Welcome to episode number
50.
Yep, that's right. So we tried to do 2 episodes before we left to go visit our grandbaby.
Well, we did do
and
2
we actually
episodes.
did 2 of them, but then one disappeared. So
It must not have been meant to be.
no, it was not meant to be into the Ethernet. So you don't get that one. We get a new one, but we got to bring all of our supplies here to Jacksonville to record another one. We're really excited to do it. It's been a wonderful time visiting our granddaughter, and we like our son-in-law and our daughter too, by the way. So if they ever listen to this, they're not offended. We enjoy being with them too. I had myself a little homework assignment that I gave from last podcast, and maybe I'll start with giving you an update of where that's at. So in our last podcast, which has been very popular, we talked about spontaneous desire and what that looks like a little bit. And at the end of it, I really realized that oftentimes I reach for Amy without having checked myself in and thought about the emotions I'm having. We also kind of had an aha that this sexual experience, this desire and eroticism really is an emotional experience.
Very emotional.
Yeah. And then because we kept on drawing conclusions about how we deal with emotions and don't deal with emotions and how it comes out sideways and, you know, what it looks like. And when we deal with them, how wonderful they can be. And oftentimes we look at the same way as our sexual desires and we actually see patterns in the same way. And then we're like, you know what? Duh. It is an emotional connection that causes us to, you know, have this wonderful erotic experience. And when we remove that emotional part of it, then it causes problems because then it just becomes the physical and not the emotional connection.
I think that arousal and desire amplify what's already there.
Yeah.
They become an amplifier. So
Yep.
if you're in neediness and you enter into a state of arousal and desire, then the neediness is amplified. If you're in a state of like wholesome desire, like knowing yourself and also wanting to be connected with another, it will amplify that. So it's not that, again, arousal and desire are good or bad, but they're an amplifier for what's already there.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way of saying it, babe.
Thanks.
When did you come up with that one? This right now?
No.
Whatever you did,
I've been
it's
thinking
good.
about it.
It really is a good one. So I'm going to report back. I made a conscious effort. We talked about waking up in the morning and being aroused and how that kind of added an extra layer on what happened next, especially because we have this ritual now where we snuggle at that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so just as you said, if I enter into that snuggle in a needy state, it's going to amplify that needy state.
Mm-hmm.
If I enter into a place of connection and desire to connect, it's going to amplify that desire to connect. And so every morning I would wake up and I actually checked in with myself, and it was really interesting. I actually really enjoyed it. What I, number one, found out is that I had to recenter myself back into the now and the reality. I think one of the things that causes me to get needy at times is if I start thinking, okay, I'm aroused, and then as a spontaneous desire, having all that desire there, we can go into all kinds of stories of what it's going to look like and what we're going to do and how much fun we're going to have and how you're going to react, and have played a script out before I ever reach over to touch you. And then if it doesn't play out that way, then there's disappointment. So that was the number one thing that I noticed, is that if I stopped to think, where am I at? I had to pull myself back into the now, the reality.
Like not letting it get too far ahead
Right.
of this moment.
What is happening right now? What am I feeling right now? And oftentimes found myself centered. And if not centered, I would work through some of the emotions. You know, I've had some big things happening at work with a new team and boss. And so there's plenty of emotions to go around.
And with your horse.
And my
with
horse,
our
and
kids.
you name it, we did it.
Even good things with our kids, not
Yeah.
necessarily bad things,
Yeah.
but just, you know, a lot of things, a lot of moving parts.
And so really finding myself having to center myself back. And then in that moment that I reached out to, it did really feel like I was reaching out from a good place, from connection. that was my side. So I guess maybe I should ask for the grade on your side since you're the ultimate one that knows whether it felt needy or not. But I felt like there was some difference there as I reached out to you.
I'm not here to grade you.
Come on.
No.
My horse got a B plus the first day at training, and I said lots of good room to improve.
But I will say that I have felt the clarity of, I guess, healthy desire as you've reached for me. It has, like, as you hold me and then you like to breathe me in and we pull into each other, there is a really strong, beautiful connection in that. And it feels like it's like the two of us. Like, okay, we're united, we're a team, we're going to go face this day.
Yeah.
And it feels like a sacred space, like just us,
Yeah.
like our own little world.
Yeah.
Before we go face all the rest of the world.
So I guess my takeaways are, one, taking some time to center myself and bring myself back into the now has been very helpful. And so maybe I would suggest that to spontaneous people. Interesting enough, we'd gone back and read our comments. Thank you for every single one of them. You don't know how much they mean to me. So please feel free to comment on our podcast. It really is cool to see those. And we had missed this even before we recorded the session, but there was a comment on there on one of our past sessions that said that they had really tried to get advice around the differences between spontaneous and responsive desire, and had felt that the only thing out there was, hey, spontaneous people, just pull it together. You're going to need to figure this out and learn about responsive people. And I can see where that's at, because sex has been so driven towards the spontaneous person. That's the studies that have been done. That's all the research that have been done. That's what has been taught us for a very long time. And so I get that there's a lot out there that talks about, hey, we need to learn and try to understand the responsive desire, and that if we let that lead out, it can be better. But as I said in the podcast, and Amy took it as me being angry at first, but it was more just passionate. And this listener said this, right? I have rarely heard a voice that's spoken up for the spontaneous desire and said what it is like to have spontaneous desire. And I love listening to that podcast. We actually got on the plane and we put our headphones in and we both listened to the podcast. And oftentimes it's very, I get to listen to it on the second time because I edit it, but Amy doesn't. And so she'll back and listen to it. And you can get a lot of different feelings listening to the podcast than you did doing it.
Experiencing it.
Yeah. And I think that role is just what I wanted people to understand, is that there are challenges to being spontaneous desire. I'm not trying to be a victim here, but I wanted to voice what those challenges were. And I think it's really, really beneficial if our responsive desire partners can understand that. And the beautifulness of the grace that Amy even showed me on the show and the words that she said, and I think it wasn't extracted out of you. It was really meaningful to me because you really meant it when you shared your gratitude about me being willing to reach out and desire you.
I think one of the things responsive desire partners can do better is recognize what is actually being offered and what is being given, and welcome the generosity of that. And often that requires a responsive desire partner to have some general self-regard, to know that they are desirable, that they have a sexual self, that they have a sexual being, and that it's a beautiful expression to be able to receive. And I think that's where a lot of responsive desire spouses struggle, is knowing that they are enough, or that they are desirable or worthy or lovable. And that is required in order to be able to receive.
Because when I know that Amy is grateful and she truly does enjoy the desire I bring to her, and when it's brought to her in a real way that she looks forward to it and enjoys it, I'm able to understand and deal with it when she goes, hey, that doesn't feel quite right, right? Because I know it's an honest thing. It's not her trying to avoid or dismiss it. It's her really feeling something different. Again, we probably shouldn't spend the whole podcast reviewing the last one because we're going to record a new one, but I thought that I would share that kind of homework assignment and what we got out of it. And again, I just think it's been very helpful for me, and I suggest other spontaneous spouses try it, just getting centered before you reach out, making sure you're in the right context and that you're really reaching out in the way you desire, right? And I'm not saying that it has to be connecting whatever that is you desire Just make sure you're true to yourself. And that's what you're really desiring before you reach out for your spouse. And I think it'd make a huge difference.
And for my responsive desire spouses, really the emotional part, I think, of sexuality is the capacity to know that you have inherent goodness, inherent desirability, and to be able to receive that, to welcome the desire from spontaneous and see it as a gift to you and as a gift to the relationship.
Yep.
So,
All right. So, as we mentioned from the very beginning, we're here in Jacksonville, Florida, visiting our granddaughter. And in this moment of having this beautiful 4-month-old granddaughter that's brought so much joy into our life, and
she is so cute. Yeah.
just the feelings I have being around her and enjoying her. And then Amy reading a book about sexual desire with some information about where our eros begins and is kind of born has brought this idea up that we want to share with you. And it really is, where does this eros start? And why do we have this sense and pull towards it in our later years? And how can we understand it better so that we can actually go after what we desire instead of doing these things kind of backwards or sideways that we often do?
Okay, I'm going to read an excerpt from this book just to frame it up.
Who is this in the book? Let's give them credit.
The book is called Love Worth Making: How to Have Ridiculously Great Sex in a Long-Lasting Relationship by Stephen Snyder, MD.
Yep.
And in the third chapter, it's called Be My Baby. And there is this little poem in there that I want to read to you. And yes, I have to wear glasses now because my eyes are getting old. So you're watching? Yes. It was a hot and humid August day, and they had been perspiring. Now it was dusk. The apartment was empty save for the two of them. As they lay in warm embrace, this room, this bed, was the universe. Aside from the faint sounds of their tranquil breathing, they were silent. She stroked the nape of his neck. He nuzzled her erect nipple, first gently with his nose, then licked it, tasted it, smelled it, and absorbed her scent. He pressed his body close to hers, sighed, and fully spent, closed his eyes and soon fell into a deep, satisfying sleep. Ever so slowly she slipped herself out from under him, lest she disturb him, cradled him in her arms, and moved him to his crib. So we first gain this feeling of total acceptance, of being nourished, fed, of literally being given like life in that mother-child bond. And it's not that we're saying eros in marriage is infantile, but the beginning of it, the beginnings of being fully loved, fully adored, fully cherished, of being like given life-giving nourishment, that's the beginning of eros. And sex is such an emotional thing because we are looking for that acceptance, that cherishing, that adoration, that same, like, yes, as we've been looking at our granddaughter, like literally we are completely and totally smitten with her. Like, she can do no wrong. She is adorable. When she's milk drunk, we're like completely captivated by her. And there's a part of us that is always trying to seek that again, that whole acceptance and adoration and pure love. And we seek that often in sexuality. And where it goes wrong is in marriage, it first requires us to have this sense of ourself. So we're not actually trying to get that from the other. But when you bring that sense of self into that vulnerable setting where you are most exposed, most naked, most revealed, because sexuality is so honest. We can't hide. We can't pretend. It is an emotional experience. It is a physical experience. It's a mental experience. It's like all of us is combined in this experience, and we're bringing it forward. And what we're looking for is that complete acceptance.
Yeah, if you think about it, it's when you start as an infant, you don't have any of the baggage,
Right.
right? So you haven't had all the years of deciding, hey, I might not be perfect. There might be something wrong with me. People may not accept me. I might be doing this the wrong way. All the things we gain over the years that cause us to be able to come back to this place, we desire and want to be drawn to it, but yet we're questioning ourselves in this moment. And we have a hard time accepting the fact that there's someone out there that might literally just love us
Mm-hmm.
and want to be with us. And so it's a dichotomy that's interesting because we desire it so much. I said this in the last podcast. I wanted this eros, I wanted this acceptance so much, but everything I was doing was causing it to be squelched and to go away because we're reacting out of the reactionary side of our brain, trying to protect ourselves from being hurt or from what we think our reactionary side of the brain is trying to tell us that is danger, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so we've spent all these years growing up through being an infant into adolescence into adults, trying to seek that again in a relationship, but yet we have all the baggage that comes with it that keeps us from being able to do that.
And so that is the joy of being an adult, is coming back to yourself. It's that journey back to you. And instead of extracting that acceptance from a parent or from a partner, you are gaining that self-acceptance and bringing yourself to a space where you can fully enjoy your spouse and be enjoyed. And I don't think there's anything as joyful or as difficult as being able to do that, right? To bring your whole self, to accept the risk, the vulnerability, to accept who you are, and also be totally open and willing to accept another. Like that is the challenge and the joy in it.
Yeah, I mean, we absolutely get to a point where we're seeking after this desire to have someone accept us this way. And the problem is that life gets in the way, right? And I absolutely believe what we said, accepting ourselves is the very first and most important thing. We actually get our clients confused sometimes because they come to us and say, we want to make our marriage better. In fact, I had one actually panic on me because we spent the first 3 sessions talking about her. And she's like, I thought I came here to fix my marriage. I said, yeah, we're going to work on that. But the thing we need to work on first is yourself, right? And as Amy talked about, if we can't truly accept ourselves and realize that we are a whole person, meaning that we're wonderful and we suck all at the same time, all together, we can't keep that together and understand that and accept ourselves, then there's no way we can expose ourselves to someone else and think that we're going to get this acceptance from someone else. Because we talk about it in validation too. When I was trying to extract validation out of Amy, it was impossible because I was asking her to tell me that I was good, and she couldn't convince my brain of that because I even had to take whatever she said, and my brain had to decide whether she was lying or telling the truth. So I was ultimately deciding anyway, but I was looking for her to be able to do it. And I think this is what it means if in the erotic world, if we don't have a sense of self, if we haven't determined who we are and that we are just acceptable because we're a beautiful human being, then we can't really come to the table and receive this life-giving eroticism because of all the baggage that's happened over all the years.
Right. So, speaking of that, in this book, Stephen Snyder says, we adults don't just want sex to feel good. We want sex to make us feel good about ourselves. There tends to be a certain amount of pride involved. When sex goes well, we feel deeply validated. When it doesn't, we can feel devastated. This connection between self and self-regard is the main thing that keeps us sex therapists in business, meaning that knowing your worth is part of what's going to allow you to enjoy sexuality is super key. And people go to sex instead to try and get that. But if you don't already believe it and feel it, you won't be able to experience it in sexuality. So it's something that you have to cultivate first in yourself to be able to receive it or give it in sexuality.
Yeah, and just as you're talking, it reminds me about all the other times we've talked about is that you can come to a moment where you have accepted that. I think there was several moments you talked about in a relationship when I was like, oh, dang, I'm looking for validation. I need to stop doing that. When I asked you what was hard to be about being married to me and you answered honestly. There was these points in time where I was really in a state of mind where I could accept who I was and I was okay with it. But as with everything else, we're human beings, right? So over the period of time, as we go and deal with things or don't deal with things, we get back to a point where we're questioning ourselves, who are we? Are we okay? And to start this podcast, when I talked about the exercise of kind of trying to center myself before I reached out for you, I think that's really what it was doing. I think in the past few weeks when I was struggling and we were reaching out and I felt needy, it really was because I had this baggage that made me question who I was and if I was okay with myself.
Mhm.
And did I accept that I was human and I could be accepted? And so I was reaching out in a way, trying to steady myself in that way instead of steadying myself before. And these last moments when I've stepped back, and one, recording the podcast is amazing because we get to go through this and that just steadies yourself anyway, because you talk out loud to hundreds of people about this, which we never thought we'd do ever.
Right.
But it helps steady yourself. And then that practice of me stopping and thinking before I reached out was, again, where am I at? Do I have emotions that I haven't dealt with, good or bad? Can I accept myself for who I am? And do I feel like I am a worthy human being to receive what I'm about to partake in? And then when I got all that figured out and then reached for Amy, it was a completely different story.
And I think some of the difference in that is if you have already decided how our interaction's going to go, it's not that your imaginative erotic mind is a bad thing at all.
Right.
No, it's actually wonderful. But if it's already pre-scripted the interaction before I'm even involved, then now that has become the goal that will define how enjoyable or good or worthy it is, instead of us being able to collaborate in that. And so it's knowing that your erotic mind and imagination are good, but also allowing me to come in and enter and collaborate with you before you set that goal.
Yeah, that's interesting. I just had kind of a little aha right there. We talked about in our fantasy, all of our fantasy podcasts, the great things about sexual fantasies. It proposes the problem and a solution with it, right?
Right.
But if I'm doing that by myself, I'm already proposing the solution. And when that solution doesn't meet up with what reality becomes, that's when the dissidence happens.
Right.
And that's when the spiral begins.
Right.
And so it's not bad that I have these fantasies
No.
and think about them. It's being able to center myself and be okay when I begin them, to say, no matter what happens here, I know that I'm worthy to receive whatever takes place, and then invite you in to those.
Right. So we
And
can
we can
collaborate.
co-create them, right?
Yeah, and co-create.
And remember, the difference isn't the problem, right? Because I'm able to, at the drop of a pin, have these kind of fantasies and these thoughts and these scenarios in my mind, this playground build is not the problem. It's if I don't invite Amy in to collaborate with me and what's it gonna look like. And I think just what I just said was the aha, is because that, right? Because if I've already done the fantasy, I've already come up with a solution, and if the real solution isn't match what I've come up with, then all there is disappointment and lack of connection.
Which I think is why your erotic mind used to feel really threatening to me, because it always felt like something I had to live up to.
Yeah. Because I had this solution that you had to kind of, now you need to do this, and that would be the
Right. It
solution.
was like a measure or a mark that I had to
Yeah.
reach. However, I actually really love your erotic mind now. I feel like as you bring your
Can you say that again?
imagination, I love your erotic mind.
Can you pinch me just to make sure we're not dreaming?
And the difference really is that you haven't completely mapped out. Now there's room for me to come in and to engage and for us to work together, as opposed to, okay, here's your to-do list. Because eroticism doesn't like goals, meaning that it doesn't like to be controlled or
Put
pinned
in a
in,
box.
or say like this has to be the outcome. And so in order for me to be able to be a part of you and co-create, there can't be set specific goals.
Yeah, I might get in trouble because this might be too much information, but it just
dear.
made me think and laugh. As the other day, I didn't even plan this out, but we were having some erotic moments and I was making up erotic stories, but I did a choose your own adventure.
It was brilliant.
Which I had no idea I was going to go there, but I thought, hey, I don't want to go somewhere that Amy doesn't want to go, so let me give her choice. I said, so choose your own adventure, 1 or 2. And I'm like, man, back to the 80s of choose your own adventure books.
It
And
was
it worked out
great.
fantastic, actually.
It was
And
super fun.
so it was a way to co-create where I was using my imaginative mind that I'm really good at these fantasies, but I was bringing Amy in to be able to have choice, and we really enjoyed it. It's a 2-step, right? They both play into this, and when it really works out well, we need both sides of it. I'm not better because I can have these imaginative stories and fantasies, and Amy's not better because she can't, and she's in a different position. It's the togetherness when we work together that works out so well. And the problem falls apart when we get isolated into ourselves and we try to solve the problem as one instead of together.
Right. So in chapter 6 of Love Worth Making, talks about this a little bit. And he said, sex therapists aren't so interested in orgasms. We're among the few humans on the planet who aren't. One of my favorite definitions of a sex therapist is someone who spends most of their professional life urging couples not to make too big of a fuss about orgasms. Why not? Because in really good sex, orgasm should be like the dessert at the end of a good meal. Memorable, perhaps, but not the reason you went out to dinner.
Oh, wow.
In my experience, the couples that have the best sex are the ones who don't set orgasm as a goal. They just enjoy it if and when it comes. Now, you might think I'm crazy to minimize the importance of orgasms, especially when nearly every other sex book in the world is promising you bigger and better ones. But Eros doesn't like goals. It's usually an advantage if you can focus on turn-ons instead, or focus on the collaboration, I would say, instead. Then, if you're lucky, after you've eaten and enjoyed everything on your plate, suddenly the dessert tray appears and you realize, oh my gosh, I forgot there's gonna be dessert.
That's an amazing reminder. That is huge. We've gone through cycles where I've been much better at doing that than not. And I think it's a good reminder to us that those cycles where we've put that off as not the goal have brought us some of the most closest, amazing experience. I think he explained it perfectly.
Yeah.
I think it's a great reminder. Go enjoy the meal.
Enjoy that erotic space. Enjoy
And if
the
we just eat
the
dessert all the time, we're going
co-creating.
to get fat and
That's what he said.
be
You
out of
can't
shape.
survive on
ugh.
just dessert. A lot of couples try to satisfy each other with orgasms and they wonder why they're still hungry.
Yeah, because you're sitting there empty.
Right. And not that just dessert is great.
That blew my mind. That absolutely blew my mind when I found out that when I'd ask Amy before, like, oh, how do you feel? And she's like, after we'd had sex, and she'd had this amazing, mind-blowing orgasm, and then she'd go, oh, I feel empty. I'm like, what? Like, I was so confused. I couldn't figure out. I'm like, I watched you have this orgasmic,
But
amazing
remember,
experience.
physical,
And I know that
emotional, and
you
mental
can
are
disconnect.
different.
Yes,
in a
and I
woman.
get that. I'm not saying that. I'm just reiterating why it was so frustrating. And maybe a lot of our listeners out there are having that same frustration that they're watching this happen. You're like, well, what do you mean? Are you crazy? Like, I literally thought you were crazy. And now I know you're crazy. No, just no, but it makes so much more sense understanding one, how this responsive desire person can separate the two, right?
Yes,
and they can
yes.
have this physical amazing moment, and yet there's not an emotion connection, and so they can feel empty afterwards. But it's also I had the wrong goals, right?
Yes.
I was like, if I bring you to orgasm and you have this beautiful orgasm, that means it's going to be wonderful. And having that for 25 years, 6 years, I don't know, when we stop, we still do it sometimes, make that the goal. For a long time, it's hard to beat because it's a pattern that we've put in there, and we love measuring ourselves. And man, if we can measure ourselves to that, that's easy.
It's interesting because in this book, I don't have the exact quote for it, but he talks about the difference between heterosexual and other, maybe gay or lesbian or other couples. And they don't necessarily not only put the focus on orgasm, but they also don't put the focus on penetrative sexual intercourse, that they are willing and open to explore all the types of erotic pleasure. And so often in heterosexual couples, it's very goal focused and it's very singular, and like it has to be penetrative and there has to be an orgasm. Instead
foreplay, then we penetrate and we both orgasm.
Instead of there being an erotic space where two people can come together and enjoy pleasure in many different forms, and being able to expand that space. And also, sometimes it's really nice. I know we've talked about this before, and a lot of my coaching couples are like, what? But to enjoy just arousing each other and let that arousal just live within you, and
Yeah.
not, again, pushing towards orgasm or pushing to solve, but letting there be just arousal is very energetic. It has a spark, it has life, it has energy. And so it's okay to be in a state of arousal and not feel like you have to solve it. In fact, I know a lot of responsive desire women are really afraid to be physically affectionate or to hug their spontaneous desire spouses or to give them a long kiss because they're afraid they'll get them aroused. And if they get it up, they got to get it down. But I think spontaneous desire enjoy arousal too. And just because they get aroused maybe by a tantalizing kiss or a flirty gaze doesn't mean anything's gone wrong or that there's something to solve.
Yeah, I go back to one of our older podcasts. If you go find the one that we had with Tammy Hill, and she explained this theory to us that we're talking about now, and she wrapped it around tantric sex and what it looks like and how we don't focus on the orgasm. And how I like, man, she's lying. This sucks. Because the number one thing is I was in my head the whole time. Like even in there, am I touching her right? Should I touch her more? Should I kiss here? Should I do that? Am I doing it too much? Am I looking for it? Am I thinking about orgasm? I'm not thinking about it. Like I was so in my head that it was just a blah. And it was like, this isn't any fun. And then I remember the moment I got out of my head and just literally went into my body and said, and at that moment I wasn't thinking. So it was just taking in what was happening.
Yeah, it's feeling, experiencing,
Experience
being
it.
present.
And that was
Yeah.
mind blowing. And for some reason, I think we've gotten away from that a little bit, back into our older patterns of, we have to, have this pattern of orgasm at the end instead of just enjoying it. But there was a moment where we learned to really enjoy the meal.
Yeah. I think it's also okay, Esther Perel talks about this a lot too, to create erotic space in a couple's life. Life is busy, especially if you have children, if you're both working, or if one of you's working. Like modern life is very demanding, it's very busy. If you're part of a faith community, a volunteer community, if you're part of, I don't know, just extended families, there are a lot of demands on the family. And I know there are a lot of couples that are like, really, you expect us to just like work, 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 work all day long and then be like, boom, ready to have this intimate sexual encounter. And instead of scheduling sex, it's okay to create periods, and it's okay to create spaces where you can play in eroticism, where you can just enjoy each other, where you can feel pleasure, where you can have arousal, and it can take all different forms, but not have to have the focus and pressure be on orgasms or on penetrative sex, but have there be more space in that definition of eroticism, that the two of you can enjoy this space.
Yeah, I will take it further. I think one of the times, or in the times that we've most enjoyed each other, was when we can have that kind of energy throughout the day. That it can come in spurts. It can come in a little smack on the butt when it's wanted. It annoys the hell out of her if it's not, or if it's needy. But when we're playful and we're in that eros space together, it happens throughout the day. Now we're blessed enough to work together at home, and so we can do that. But even text if you're apart. When I'm traveling, when we're really in this erotic space, the text message I'll have will be that way. And it's just a way of living in this erotic place throughout the day.
Because
And
it
it's
is hard.
not a moment, right?
Right. It's really
way
hard, especially for responsive, to be like, okay, I'm going to do all the kids, I'm going to do the laundry, I'm going to do all the cooking, I'm going to do the chores, yada, 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 yada. Or maybe it's work and then running kids around. And then all of a sudden, boom, you're supposed to just like transition into this space of desire. Like that's really hard. But if there are places where which is why one of the reasons I love our morning daily ritual, I feel like it it connects us in this erotic way every morning. It's a little more than a cuddle. I'm just going to be honest.
I grab her boob.
It's an erotic cuddle, we'll say that, because cuddling isn't always erotic. Cuddling can be very non-erotic, and it's a reminder and a spark that happens every day. And then we have our emotional connection at night where we're really attuning to one another. And we have typical times of a week that we know are like our pockets of time. And those are important. So it is important to create these spaces for eroticism. Now, don't hear me saying create spaces to have sex, because I think really good sex will happen eventually after you've created these erotic spaces and you have the meanings of like neediness and serving totally wiped out because they are so anti-erotic. But when you're really able to see the generosity of the giving and the receiving of the meaning, like it's the two of us in this together, and you get to come exactly as you are, and I get to be exactly who I am. I don't have to mold myself into something else. You don't have to mold yourself into something else. And we get to collaborate in that together.
Right. And it will only work if you, one, know yourself and are anchored in who you are and okay with that. And I think, two, realizing that the differences are really important, even in the sexual desire, right? And there's not one that's more important than the other. You need both. You need the responsive and the spontaneous to be there. There's something about someone desiring something and someone being the one that's desired, and there's simmering involved, and there's this play that happens. But when we're so focused on this isn't working and it's broken, the first thing we go to is they need to look more like me, right? And realizing that's not the case, that it is this. And when it's broken, it's usually because we've gotten into a pattern of not knowing if we're okay with ourselves really first. And so we can't be in that place together, and we can't allow this eroticism to work because we try to put boundaries around it and ask it to do things for us. And it goes away. It's like, I'm not here. I can't be there.
Yeah.
And so it just causes that spiral that we talk about because we're seeking it so much. Again, I think it's beautiful for what we said from an early age. We know of this life-giving form, this erotic form, and we're always seeking to get back to it. But we spend our lives finding ways to actually get in the way of having it and destroying it. It's that, again, that dichotomy of wanting it so bad, but being the one that does things that doesn't allow it to happen.
He kind of talks about that in the book too, that sex, when you bring yourself, meaning that you know that you are worthy, you know that you are desirable, and when you come to that erotic space, one of the most beneficial things you can do is pay attention to the present moment. He says sex is all about paying attention. It's all about the present moment, and it's about being without judgment. It's about acceptance, not getting too attached to the thoughts that might come in and getting distracted by those, but being able to enjoy the sensations, to enjoy each other's smell, skin, touch, pleasure, the meaning in the touch, the message of desiring. What most responsive spouses want is to be the object of desire. And spontaneous, thankfully, has a lot of desire. And so it is this perfect lock and key, right? We want to be the object of your desire. We want to be fully cherished. And in return of receiving your desire, you also feel welcomed and accepted and whole. And so then appreciated. Then it becomes mutually pleasurable, beneficial, joyful. And there is this pursuer and the pursued, and that is intentional. And it actually works together really well if you allow it to.
Yeah. I think one of the things that you mentioned that I really watched you go through and work on was being in that space and really focusing on the now. One of the major breaks that you had was the thoughts that came into your
Yeah,
mind. So
totally.
we'd be in the middle of have an erotic moment, and you'd all of a sudden be thinking about what you didn't do or should be doing, or who was you
Mm-hmm.
need to take care of, or what things you didn't get off your checklist. And it was
Mm-hmm.
major big breaks. And so I've been really proud of you of being able to stop and be in the moment, and because it was hard.
Yeah. And it takes practice to be able to set those things aside. For me, I would imagine like, okay, this is the moment I get to be the girlfriend. I'm not the wife and the mom anymore. I get to be the girlfriend. And the girlfriend is not worried about all the tasks. The girlfriend is not worried about all these to-do lists. The girlfriend is just enjoying being adored
Yeah.
and
Spoiled.
enjoying the spoiling and the attention. And so I have created this space where I get to be the girlfriend.
And when that shifts, we had a good friend in our first retreat that said, he better take me to bed at night. Like, because all the women were like, I'm so tired. Like, I can't believe it. I watched all the kids. How am I ever going to do that? And she goes, what are you talking about? He's going to take me to the room and spoil me. It's the best way to unwind and have a moment that I don't care about the kids and I don't care about the house. And it was such a different switch on it. Like the jaws of the women were dropped to the floor. Like, what are you talking about? But we really have seen that. If you get that wrapped around and say, this is a moment that I can be spoiled as a responsive person, I do appreciate the desire that my spontaneous partner has for me. It's in a spoiling moment.
Yeah, it really is.
And it's not selfish because, by the way, us spontaneous people love every minute of it.
Yep. I think we about covered it all.
Yeah,
babe.
we got to get back to doing nurseries.
That's right. We're decorating our grandbaby's
We're pretty
nursery.
proud of it. Maybe if you're watching this, we'll put a picture of it. So we've made an undersea adventure in our grandbaby's. Maybe over the top a little bit.
Us? Over the top? What are you talking about?
We went through IKEA. We saw a little sample of this, and I'm like, I'm doing this. So I haven't
Although
demanded. I
IKEA
offered.
is not usually
No, our
our
thing. I hadn't been there for years.
Yeah, it's not usually
My
our
daughter,
style.
our youngest daughter, wanted to go when she was moving apartments. But it's been so much fun to put this thing together, and Amy's amazing. She
Thanks,
makes
babe.
a hell of a seaweed. Like,
one of my skills.
like I had no idea you were so good at making things look like seaweed on the ceiling. But anyway, we'll post a picture for you of the end result. But we're going to get back to that. We're grateful that we're able to spend a few moments with you this morning. Thank you for listening. We really, really appreciate it.
Yes,
It's been
we do.
amazing. And by the way, I forgot to announce this at the beginning, so hopefully everyone's still listening. It is coming up to episode number 52, which means 1 year of episodes. It's not really, we released 2 the first time, so it's not exactly 1 year of episodes, but I'm not gonna get
You're not going
too
to be
much into
literal
detail.
about
I'm not
that. You're not
not
going to
gonna be
wind
literal.
yourself up.
No, I'm not
about
gonna
that.
wind up about that. So
Okay.
episode 52, we're celebrating an anniversary, and this is what we're doing. So if you get episode 52, in the description notes, there will be a link for you to go submit your email address and name and give us some feedback about the podcast, and you will be entered into a drawing. And we will wait for a week or two, and we'll do a random drawing, and that person will win 3 free coaching sessions. Even if you're a client of us, we'll add that to your package. You get 3 free ones. If you're not, you'll get 3 free ones. There's nothing, you don't have to sign up after that. You'll
It's
just
a
get free.
$450 value.
$450 value
Yep.
for you. So stay tuned for episode 52.
Well, I think it's worth more than $450, but that's the price.
little cost that would
Yeah.
have cost you if you had this. And you can obviously choose Amy because she's amazing, and that's who I choose, or I'm more than happy to do it too. We can coach you, or we can swap back and forth. One can coach you one, and I can coach the other. We don't do a very good job coaching you together. We've tried a few, and we've done a few of them, but it's worked when it needed to, but it's not really the best way about it. So, but we're more than willing to swap back and forth if you need the perspective of the other person, and it'll work great. So look forward to that. Episode 52. This is 50. We have 2 more to go, and then we'll have that link in the description for you to submit your name. Thank you so much for everything. We really appreciate it. Go like and subscribe to the podcast.
And thank you again for your comments, your support, for listening. We're rooting for you, and we are here supporting you to help create this eroticism, thriving, your best self, and just a happy, joyful marriage.
Yep. If you're sitting there thinking this can't happen, you're wrong. We've seen it happen over and over again. The most important thing is we focus on making you the best version of yourself, and then we work on this great marriage. it can work. Please go join us on langfordlifecoaching.com. There's free consults there too that we'd love to talk to you. Thanks again. Until next time.
Keep undressing your intimacy.
Bye-bye.
Let's go get our baby girl.
Let's get her.